just through courses. I had, Western history course where the professor talked about the Reformation and kind of he explicitly tried to present a balanced picture of the state of the Catholic Church on the eve of the Reformation. And he made a point of saying, I want you to walk away understanding that it wasn't all bad, that there were things going on that were actually, the church was growing and there were good things happening at the same time that there was some corruption going on. And then he had us read a story from Boccaccio's Decameron, which for me was it's sort of a turning point story for thinking about this whole issue of, papal authority and corruption in the hierarchy, and how do those two make any sense together. And the story from Boccaccio's Decameron is of a Jew from Paris who surprises his Catholic friend by deciding to convert and become a Catholic. And he tells his Catholic friend, I'm thinking about becoming a Catholic, and I want to go visit Rome so I can see, the church leadership up front and close before I decide to join. And his Catholic friend says, oh, wait a minute, no, you don't need to go to Rome. And then secretly the Catholic is thinking, oh no, if he goes to Rome and he sees the way the cardinals and the Pope are living, he's never going to want to become Catholic. So he tries to tell him, oh, it's too far, you should just stay here and talk to your local priest or whatever. And the Jew says, no, I really, really want to join. I really want to go make this pilgrimage to Rome. And so finally he can't be dissuaded. And so his friend thinks, okay, well, that's it, he's never going to join. But then he hears later from his friend, the Jew, who says, congratulate me, I'm now a Catholic. He says, oh, so you didn't go to Rome after all? Oh, no, I did go to Rome. Says, oh, you did? You went to Rome, but you're still a Catholic. And he says, yeah. He said, in fact, I saw all of the corruption in the church, and it convinced me of the doctrine of the Holy Spirit. Because I looked around and I said, all of the earthly leaders of this church are, to all appearances, doing their best to bring about the end of Catholicism. And if it were just a human institution, they would surely be ruining it. But yet, instead, it's growing and it's thriving. So it must be the Holy Spirit. And so for me, that was it turned the typical Protestant argument on its head and said, okay, you want to talk about corruption in the hierarchy? Let's talk about it. Maybe that makes it harder to get around the Catholic claim that there's a divine guidance happening, in the church.
Right.
So that was something I was getting through courses. I was also getting a lot of interesting theological conversations with friends. A school like Asbury, you're taking a lot of Christians from different backgrounds: Methodist, some Presbyterian, some Pentecostal, some sort of non-denominational, lots of different stripes of Christian, and you're putting them all together. Mostly everybody's taking their faith seriously, but they don't always agree, or they have different theological backgrounds. So you wind up getting some really interesting conversations.
Yeah.
And so I had a really good friend who was raised evangelical Presbyterian and was a very stout Calvinist. And he was kind of the odd man out in a lot of these sorts of conversations. There'd be a whole bunch of people from a Wesleyan background, and then he'd be the lone Calvinist sticking out his position. But there was one particular conversation that struck me. Somehow we got to talking about divine attributes and which divine attribute is the most fundamental or the most important. And somebody on the Wesleyan side was saying, well, holiness is really important. That's really what makes God God, is he's holy. And then my Calvinist friend said, well, couldn't you say that the holiness is really dependent on the fact that God is sovereign? And it's his sovereignty that's more fundamental than holiness. And they kind of debated back and forth. And by this point, I was well on my way to becoming Catholic. And so I didn't really feel like I needed to weigh in. I was just kind of watching this debate. And I thought, this is interesting that it seems fairly evenly matched. And I was sort of curious, I wonder what the Catholic Church says about this sort of debate. And I had started acquiring, even as a freshman, a bunch of books, which is one of the other helps that I got to to answer this question, should I become Catholic? I started acquiring books by Catholics because I'd kind of learned enough in high school to know if I want to figure out what the Catholic Church really thinks or teaches, I should probably stop relying on purely Protestant sources. I should probably, get some Catholic information on what they teach. So my freshman year, the fall semester, it was 2003, and the college library was getting rid of some of their old books. And one of the things they were getting rid of and selling in a book sale was the first edition of the New Catholic Encyclopedia, because the second edition had just come out in 2003, so they didn't want to have two editions of the Catholic Encyclopedia. It's too much for a Protestant school. They just needed one edition of the New Catholic Encyclopedia. So they're getting rid of the old first edition, a whole big 19-volume set. They were selling it for $50. Now, as a college freshman, I didn't have a lot of money, so I really thought, I was like, $50? Can I spend that kind of money? But I thought, it's 19 volumes. That's only a little more than $2 a book.
That's right.
So I justified it, and I bought the set. And from that point on, for the rest of my time in college, it sat on the back of my desk in my dorm room. And anytime I had a question about, I wonder what the Catholic Church thinks about Mary, or I wonder what the Catholic Church thinks about divine attributes. So after that debate around the cafeteria table about divine attributes, I thought, I wonder what the Catholic Church has to say about that. So I looked up divine attributes, and I found out, oh, yeah, they do have things to say about divine attributes. And it's not holiness and it's not sovereignty. There's actually the idea that God he has a satiety. God has all of his attributes from himself, that he is who he is, his existence and his essence. It's not just that he has holiness, it's that he has it from himself.
Right.
He is the source of it. And so that really helped me to see, it helped me to see a basis for the distinction between worshiping God and venerating the saints. Because if God is the source of holiness, then he can give it to his saints, and they're still not God. Because the holiness they have is pure gift, it's grace. It's God's holiness. It's God's holiness in and through their life. And so we can speak well of them. We can praise them in that sense without worshiping them, without saying that it's their holiness. It's really God's holiness. And so for me, that was sort of a transformational understanding of that distinction, and how you can honor the saints and still be worshiping God. Just like you would, if you see a painting and you say, oh, what a beautiful painting, as long as you're still acknowledging and understanding that the painting didn't paint itself.
Right.
Any praise you give to the artwork is praise for the artist.
Yeah, what you find with a lot of those, when you get